Welcome back for another episode of Soccer Sofa, hosted by me, the horse.
And myself, the stud. This week, we've got a former member of the Premier League and Durham County Football FA. Furthermore, he was a former FIFA referee. He's refereed some of the most notable matches in the game, including the 2016 UEFA Champions League final, the UEFA Euro 2016 final, Euro finals. He's an outstanding referee and one hell of a nice guy. Roll VT!
Courtois e Hazard sono I due calciatori che Antonio Conte
One of the very best. Certainly our best. They could have picked any referee out of this tournament.
From France, he's been outed.
This week, Mark Clattenburg, one of Europe's best referees. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. I wouldn't say the best referee. I was, like all referees are, they always get criticised. So, you're only as good as your last match. And I've been left a while, so I wouldn't say I'm the best anymore.
One of Europe's best. How about that?
I'll take that one.
Fair play. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us. How's lockdown treating you?
I'm loving it. I left China in December after their season. I was due to go back in February, so I thought it was going to be short-lived. I had a few months with the family. It was nice over Christmas and the New Year. And then I could see what was happening in China was going to happen all over the world. So, we were prepared that I was never going to go back to China in the short term. And unfortunately, highly unlikely that I'll be going back now because of the way the season is. But it's been a chance to spend some time with the family. I've been travelling for 3 years since I've left the Premier League. And it's been nice to spend some time back in England and see me friends and play a bit of golf, which, I'm getting called a bandit at the moment, so I don't know why.
Well, and it's also a great opportunity to spend some time with us, so we'd like to thank you very, very much.
No problem.
Mark, a good place to start would probably be right at the beginning and your childhood. As you've touched on already, you grew up in Durham. I think you're actually a cricket fan growing up. What were you like as a kid?
No, I was born in Consett, which is in County Durham. So I've got a bit of a Mackem side of it, but I'm certainly not a Sunderland fan. I'm a black and whiter. So I was quickly. It was amazing because I had two brothers, and one of my younger brothers was going to be a Newcastle fan. And my family, my dad was the driver for Sunderland Football Club in their first team, and so he took my older brother to watch Sunderland. So, but I never wanted to watch Sunderland. So we quickly moved to north of Newcastle to a place called Blythe, and we lived on a council estate. And like every child, it was great life, and we had a great loving parents, and we all looked after each other. We had a big family of 5, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and we quickly grew up. And I always wanted to be a football player from a young age. I loved watching football. I would always listen to the radio in Newcastle, and we weren't allowed to play junior football. And it's not like it is now where you're allowed to play from a very young age. The earliest you could play was under 11s. So the earliest age you could play was 9. Any younger you weren't allowed to play. So you had to wait till 9 to start playing. Plus we had problems in the school because some school teachers didn't, it was like the school strikes in them days. So a lot of the school teachers didn't want to do extra curriculum. So football and cricket and rugby weren't taught in the schools as much. So you had to rely on playing some football outside. And I always wanted to play football, and I always wanted to play for Newcastle. And I think it's like every lad's and boy's dream. And I was fairly good at it. I was scoring goals. I was a centre forward. I was scoring goals for fun. And I think I ended up moving few years later. I think I was getting slow and maybe fat. I was probably eating too many Mars bars or Greg's pasties or whatever. I ended up in midfield, out on the wing, probably trying to find a position for us, and I ended up on the wing. And it was interesting because we had some trial matches. I went down to Millwall, down for some trial matches, and I remember marking a guy from Watford. I can't remember his name, and oh my god, he was a different level to me. I couldn't get near him, just too good. And I remember coming off and speaking to the scout, and he said, Mark, you know, this guy's, you know, chance to play for England youth, and but don't worry about it. I remember playing another match and I did okay, but they were at a different level to me. So it was an opportunity, and I played a lot for the school, like the high school as well, because my school teacher, Mr. Reach at Cramlington High School, wanted us to play football for the school, and I didn't want to, and he made us play. And eventually, he said to us one day, he said, Mark, you're not going to make it as a professional footballer. Why not turn to refereeing? And through the Duke of Edinburgh Award, it was funded from them, and through the school that I would take an 8-week course. And I've met him since for a coffee, and I've thanked him so much that it was probably the best decision he ever gave us at school, because he didn't give us many.
I've always got to laugh at that, because your teachers suggested you go into referee, and mine suggested we should start the recorder.
No, I was no good at music. I was tone deaf. So I think because I was always in trouble a little bit at high school, and I know my parents were quite strict. So one of the things I remember saying to them, I was put on school report. I think I was naughty to the French teacher, probably because I fancied her at school or something like that. And she put us on report. So it went back to Mr. Reach, who was my house head, and he said to us, well, I've got to send it home to your parents. And I said, well, if you send it back to your parents, I can't play football because they'll stop us, they'll ground us, you know. So he quickly made that decision that report wasn't going home, because he needed us to play football. So we had such a good relationship. So yeah, he always looked after us, and you know, he had a respect, and you know, I don't think he ever realised that I was ever going to turn into a referee and achieve what I did in the game. And I think he was just tongue-in-cheek that I probably wasn't going to make it as a footballer. And I think all children, and they've got to be careful, I suppose, that, you know, you've got this education and you want to do well at school, but some people think that they want to be a professional footballer, and not everybody makes it, and there's only a small number that do make it. And you know, one of the things that I'm pleased I did is I stuck in at school and got some decent qualifications, that if refereeing didn't work out, then I had some sort of education. But even when I was at 16, at a young age, it wasn't professional refereeing, it was still very much semi-professional. So at that early age, I wasn't really thinking as a job. It was more of a hobby, and to earn extra money outside of your normal job.
I've just got to ask this: when you're playing football, and I know you said the trial at Millwall was tough, but when you're playing football and then someone says you're not going to make it, you're going to be a referee, right? Obviously, you went on and you made a career as a referee, a fantastic referee. How does that feel as a child for you? Because
it's different to speak. Yeah, it's different to speak at 45 now, because you've got better education, you've got more experiences. I suppose when you're younger, you've probably got a bit of arrogance about you. You think, what does he know? What does that teacher know? You know, and but I was always wanting to be involved in football, and I suppose when I did the refereeing exam, and then I started to referee, I got this bug. So I didn't know where it was going to end up. So I was still playing a little bit, but then it became a point where I think refereeing, doing some youth matches, and my father was a coach for one of the youth teams, then it made the transition easier, because then it just seemed to be like every weekend, instead of playing football, I was getting booked to referee some junior matches, and the feedback I was getting after the games was quite positive. So therefore, I kept doing it, and then it just seemed to spiral, where each year I was getting bigger and better matches in the youth leagues, getting finals. I was getting involved more, and I seemed to get a bug. And it's a difficult thing to explain if you've never been involved in it, but I think most referees would probably say the same, that you get this weird bug that you just want to do it. Even when you get abuse, you want to do it again, and you want to keep doing it, because you do make an impact. If you know, playing an advantage just gives you a little bit of a nice feeling, you know, that you've done something positive in the game.
I think you've said in different interviews that at the grassroots was some of the worst abuse that you got in those early days. Was there any that really stick in your mind?
Yeah, there was two. I remember Sunday morning. I was at Widrington in the Morpeth Sunday League, and I was getting threatened from a player. I was young. I was only, I think I was about 18 at the time, and it was extremely difficult. He was very volatile, and I ended up sending him off. I probably should have sent him off 3 times before that, but I was too frightened, and he was bullying us, and he said he was going to punch us after the match, and it was just an awful feeling to try and finish the match and trying to pull out of a situation that you don't want to be involved in. And lucky enough, he had enough time to think that his actions might have been worse. But you also had to, when you were in your early, like 18, 19, you wanted to go out with your friends, and you had to be careful that, you know, you had some players that played in the local leagues would be outside. So you had to be careful that didn't impact into you, because they knew that you were a referee. So you had to be protective. And the second situation I always remember, I was in the Premier League at the time and doing really well, and I did a youth match. It was for one of my good friends. He had a team in Sunderland, and he asked us to do a favour. I think I'd refereed a big match in the Premier League the day before. And said, "Will you come and referee this match? It's top face second." And I said, "Of course I will. You're my friend. I'll help you out." And I got some huge abuse off. I wasn't getting paid. I didn't want to take any money. I was getting so much abuse off one of the parents' dad, one of the opposition's dads. And eventually I just stopped the match, and I walked over, and I didn't say anything. I just dropped my whistle and walked off the pitch and kept walking to the car. And eventually, like, I was called back, and they ejected the guy, and he was more embarrassed than I was because everybody turned against him. And it was just a simple technique I used. I thought, well, why do I need to be in that environment when I'm not getting paid for it? I'm doing you a favour. I'm also putting something back in towards your child's football, that they can say, well, hold on, that Mark Clattenburg was refereeing this match yesterday. Look, he's finding time to referee this match today. But I wasn't there to be taken of abuse. And this is the problem with modern society now, that the abuse is just getting worse and worse. And I feel for a lot of just referees, and in particular on the grassroots, because some of the abuse that they actually take is an absolute disgrace.
Well, this leads me into the question: do you think this is hindering the amount of youth going into refereeing?
It's a really difficult thing, because I think the culture that's been brought up is everybody takes their anger out on the referee, and it's come from the parents and it comes down to the children. And I find, even when I used to watch my child, the fathers were just, I think they were angry, maybe because they wanted their boy to be something they weren't. So therefore, they're taking their anger out on the son, then they're taking their anger out on the referees, and it's just a spiraling effect where, I'm probably a bit more balanced, where I would watch my son not say a thing, and then I would sit down and he would say, "Dad, how did I do?" And I would say, "Yeah, you've done the good things and the bad things," and we would have an interaction, but I would never take it out on anybody. I wouldn't take it out on the coach or the referee. But some people just seem to want to vent their anger at the referee or whatever's in front of them, and most of the time the referee hasn't got a speaking part, so that's where they get the abuse that they do.
And then the next stage, of course, was I think you were a linesman in the Northern Leagues. I'm guessing you were doing this alongside being an electrician at the time. Is that correct? Yeah,
it was really difficult to balance both, because a lot of weekend work, so I was having to cancel weekends, so therefore I'd lost my overtime money, and I would referee for maybe £10 or £15, where I would earn hundreds of pounds at work. So it was a balance that I had to sacrifice to referee. And I remember it was funny, because some of the guys that I used to work with come out now and say, "Mark, you were a time waster. You always wanted to be a referee. You never wanted to be an electrician." So therefore, they knew that, I had a chance to always reach the top, and I was always driven and dedicated that if I was given an opportunity, I wouldn't waste it, because in life, from an early age, if you miss that one opportunity, you might never ever get it back. So I didn't want to regret anything, so therefore I give it everything I had, and I did make a lot of sacrifices to start my refereeing career up.
And then, of course, we're starting to move towards the more professional game. I think your next move was as a 24-year-old in the conference. I mean, you're still a very young man, and I imagine most of the players and managers, well, managers for sure, were a lot older than you. How was it managing that?
It's massive. It was huge. It was so difficult because you were a 24-year-old in a man's game. But I got so much luck, and you need luck in life. Some of it's skill, maybe 90% of it's skill, but you need 10% of luck. I think all top sportsmen will say the same. And my luck came at a conference game, and it'll always stick in my mind. It was Barra and Rushden and Diamonds, and Rushden and Diamonds had just drawn Leeds the week before in the FA Cup, so they were playing a replay. It was going to be on TV, and we had to drive together to save costs in the conference. It's not like in the Premier League or in the Football League where you drive separately for safety and make sure that all the match officials get there. In the conference, you drove together to save on expenses, and we all drove across together. And one of the assistant referees was an old guy, and he said to us, Mark, he said, "You've got a big future ahead of you. I think you're gonna end up like got a big chance of refereeing at the highest level. Why not you become the senior assistant referee?" And I ended up being the senior. And what happened after that was that the referee went injured after 15 minutes, and I ended up getting on as the referee, and had a really good game. And I remember going at the clubhouse afterwards, and everybody from Barra had lost. All the fans were saying, "Well, great refereeing performance, well done." The assessor marked us very highly, and I got promoted that season. So people used to say I was fast-tracked. I wasn't fast-tracked. It was just that I was doing so well that they didn't want to hold us back. They wanted to see what my development would happen. And I ended up being an assistant referee in the Football League after 1 year on the conference. So
would a referee normally
steps, because it wasn't at the time. It was unheard of for. It was an old man's game when I was a young referee. They were all in the late 40s because it was a semi-professional job. Everybody went late. The game wasn't as quick as it is now, so therefore it was unheard of a 24-year-old, and it made big publicity because it broke the record at the time. So to referee a professional football match, so you know, it was a great honour to be stepping up. But it was huge because the pressures were so big from refereeing in a conference. Maybe, you know, okay, there were some games you might have had 1,000 or 2,000, and some reserve games in them days you could get huge attendances because some of the reserve games between the professional clubs maybe had some of the players that were coming back from injury. So yeah, you had the odd game, but when you went to Football League, you were more cameras. Certainly more crowds. So yeah, the step was huge.
And then I think your first game in the Football League was Chesterfield v York, which I think Chesterfield won fairly comfortably 4-1. But I couldn't help noticing there's a red card for an off-the-ball incident. For your first game up, that must be a difficult one to sort out.
Yeah, it seemed to be a trend late in my life that I keep sending players off on my debuts. So I remember a guy called Swan, Peter Swan it was, for York. They went 1-0 up, York. Chesterfield were one of the high flyers, expected to be promoted, invested a lot of money, and had a good crowd as well. So yeah, but Chesterfield won it easily 4-1. And I remember sending off Peter Swan. He was a big centre-half, big Berlin centre-half, and I caught something. Probably seen too much, actually, he'd probably say, because as I should have been watching the ball, and I wasn't. I was watching what was going on, which this is what happens with many fans. They watch the ball and they end up they miss what's just happened, and then they blame the referee thinking, well, nothing happened. Yeah, something did happen, you just missed it. Because referees have got to sometimes have eyes in the back of their head, and I caught him headbutting somebody, and the cameras didn't pick it up. And unfortunately, the fans missed it as well, but I didn't, and I ended up sent up. But I don't think he ever played again since, because I think he got a bad injury in training after he'd served his suspension. So I don't think he ever played again. So he's probably on my hit list. You probably want to get us later in life.
Yeah, I watched that instance. I thought it was a completely fair headbutt.
That's what he'll probably say.
Yeah, I mean, you're very right in what you say. I checked the attendance for that game, and it was 4,500, which quite a lot for a I can't remember what it was officially called then, Division 3.
Something like that. Yeah, I remember.
Division
Yeah,
3
because we
game.
always, when you're refereeing in a new league, you always, or certainly when you're refereeing in the football league, you always refereed in the lowest league, and then you built your way up. I remember I didn't do a championship game till, which was Norwich QPR, till I think maybe January. I think it was. And I think I had a nightmare that day because it was just step ups were just too big. 28,000 at Carrow Road, and I remember it was just another step up and really intimidating and so hard for 24-year-olds to really, in a man's game, because the players are trying to test you and want to try and get an angle and get the next decision and stuff. And that's when you find it difficult because you're getting more and more dissent because you're young, and that's people say it's part and parcel of the game. Players will say that, but it's hard for when you're young trying to deal with that and trying to make the right decisions, of course.
And then in 2003, I think it was, you were starting, or 2002, you were starting to get some bigger games in the form of playoffs. So semi-final playoffs. I think there was Forest v Sheffield United game and a QPR v Oldham. There's obviously a lot riding on those games, and must have been a lot of pressure.
Yeah, playoff games are completely unique because, like you said, the one-off games, and there's so much riding on it. You play. They might complain about refereeing decisions in the run-of-the-mill leagues, but you've got so many games to recover. But in playoffs, you've got no time to recover. I've had some amazing experiences in the playoffs, second legs. I remember not finishing one game at QPR. Well, I think I blew my final whistle. I was running off the pitch because the police horse was coming on, the fans were coming on. So I can't remember much of finishing that match. I remember finishing a match at Hull and Watford. And having both assistants on the same side, because if I didn't, he was never going to get on, because they just kept coming on the pitch, the whole fans, and I had to find a way to try and get all the players off safely. But I had to think about my mate over the far side and think about him. So I just put him on. I had the two assistants on both sides for the last few minutes just so we could get down the tunnel when I blew my final whistle. So yeah, that was one of always the tricks in the playoffs. Always finish the match on the halfway line near the dugout so you could run straight off.
But you say this, but you must have been impressed because I think it was 2004 you made the step up then to Premier League. Can you just talk us through that process of how you make the step up? Because you've obviously made 3 or 4 steps at this point. How do you move up?
Well, normally it's on like you get assessed. So in the football league, you get assessed every game. When you're in the lower leagues, you may be assessed one every 10, 15 matches. Even in the conference, you only I think I was only assessed maybe 6 to 8 times in the season. But in the football league, you were assessed every match. Clubs also mark you, which you can't really always take into account the club marks because you give a late penalty against one club and they're just going to mark you down. I remember doing a playoff game, Notts Forest and Sheffield United, and Neil Warner came in afterwards and said, "I'm marking you a 0." And I went, "Well, that'll kill us for promotion." He went, "Yeah, because I don't want you to get promoted to the Premier League because you'll change, your attitude will change, you'll become a big time Charlie." So he says, "I want to keep you grounded, stay in the football league." And we laughed about it, of course. And these marks can affect some promotions. And look, strange enough, I didn't get promoted that season. So I took 4 years to be promoted to the Premier League. And I have to say, the third year I finished top. I was top of the merit tables and everything. I felt I was ready. I wasn't. Probably that step might have been just too quick. And my last year in the football league, I was ready. I was refereeing Ipswich, Norwich, which were the big games in the championships. And I felt I was handling them, the playoffs, all the big matches, and I was getting exposed more to Sky and big matches. And it come to a point after the fourth season that I was ready. And when I was going to make that transition, I knew that I was going to be ready. But I was also lucky, and what I talked about before about luck is the boss at the time was Philip Don, and Philip Don's management in the Premier League was very regimental and very military, and he wanted referees to be black or white. Unfortunately, you can't be black or white. The rules are there, but you've got to. Some referees will interpret them in a way that will suit the match and the way the game's played. And Keith Hackett had become the new boss, and my style of refereeing at that time was quite unique. And the clubs loved it, the management loved it, and it seemed to be the trend going forward that my style of management and letting the game flow and having a personality seemed to work, and it certainly worked for me. And to make me debut at Crystal Palace Everton in 2004 was, I think, it was the second week of the season, which was nice because I was fourth official at Bolton for the first match day, and then the next match day I was ready to make my debut. And you know, like you say, it was a great step because even when you get your first game, you get your new kit, and the kit's all free, and you get your badge, and you know, all the new stuff, and it's quite exciting. It's like your first day at school. Like you're going out to work, and you've got all your new tools, and but then the pressure starts building the closer you get to the stadium, because you know then that you're in this huge goldfish bowl that everything that you do is being scrutinised by millions of people, and some agree, some don't, and that's the life of a referee.
What's it like getting the biggest team in the world on your first Premier League game?
What you saying, Everton?
Certainly not you.
Some of the games after that. But, no, it was interesting because at the one, I think I sent off Gary Naismith for second yellow, which was blatant. I think he stopped. I think he blatant attack from the corner. I think they were caught out, and he took one for the team. But the one easy against Crystal Palace, and you know, it was a nice debut. But I remember my fitness stats. And I thought I was fit, but I was miles away. I remember I was my first half, my stats were so high, I didn't have anything left in the tank in the second half, and it just proved that I was like an excited young guy. I suppose when you get older, you start reading the game more. But I remember the first half, I was absolutely shattered, and the second half, I had absolutely nothing left to run around. But I didn't influence the result. I didn't make many mistakes. No, I'm not saying I didn't make any mistakes, because I think every human being makes mistakes, and you know, but there
was definitely no mistakes. We won the game 3-1. Definitely no mistakes.
Exactly.
If I remember right, you even gave a penalty, which I think Gravison slotted in.
I can't remember. It must have been. If I've given it Crystal Palace, it must have been. But I've got such a great record with Crystal Palace in the Premier League. Just to start for you, I refereed them 13 times in the Premier League, and they never won one. So
fantastic.
The last time I refereed them was in a playoff match at Brighton. So it's like I'm their hoodoo team, you know.
But you went on, and you I mean, I'm just looking at some of your stats here. That season, 17 Premier League games. The following season, 17 Premier League games. Following season, 26. You became almost every single week you're refereeing another top flight game. What were your most enjoyable games during that period?
There's so many. I remember in my first season, I was tasked. There was a three-way playoff, a three-way tie at the bottom, and it was Crystal Palace, Norwich, and West Brom. And I was tasked to referee. But Graham Poll was tasked to referee originally. And he was taken off the game because he was injured or ill. And they asked me to do, and I was like, "Whoa, you've asked Graham Poll originally. Now you're asking me on my first season. Like, that's quite a nice gesture, you know." And because if Crystal Palace lost, then they were down, you know. And it was interesting because Norwich were 5-0 down at home. Norwich were 5-0 down, I think, at Fulham. Therefore, they were down. And Crystal Palace had to win, and that would have knocked West Brom down, and they ended up drawing the match. And the pressure and the feeling during the match, because when you're refereeing these games at the end of the season, you feel mood swings, and I've done so many of them where on the pitch it's just as surreal because the fans are translating so many messages across to the players, and you can feel it in the players, and they start realising that they potentially got a chance of being relegated. And, you know, Palace knew for the last 10 minutes they had a massive threat of being relegated. So, you know, the intensity and the pressures build. So to be tasked with that match was quite unique. And I've had some amazing memories in the Premier League. And early in my Premier League career, I did so many derbies. One of the infamous derbies in 2008, which I had an absolute nightmare. But, you know, some players have nightmares and they score hat-trick the following week. And the heroes, when you have a nightmare as a referee, everybody remembers it for years. And I think I'm still on the bloopers on Christmas videos. So, but I remember going to Old Trafford in 2000, and I think it was 2008 as well, when it was my first game at Old Trafford, and the pressures of that builds with Salix and Old Trafford, 76,000 people, probably the biggest crowd I'd ever refereed in front of, and everything was going swimmingly well till 2 minutes from the end, when I'm standing wonderfully on the halfway line and Mendes hits this wonderful shot, thinking the Premier League goalkeeper will just nicely catch that, and the keeper spills it. Roy Carroll spills it, and it ends up going behind the goal. And people say to me, "How do you not see it?" And it's like, "Come on, then I'll put you on the halfway line, and I'll scoop the ball back without the pressures of 76,000 people. You tell me the ball's in or out, 100%. Don't guess, 100%, and nobody will ever know." So I still get the abuse for it because, unfortunately, the assistant couldn't see it. Without technology, we couldn't give the goal. So, yeah, there was some amazing highs and amazing lows. But one of the things when you got the lows, especially in the early part of my Premier League career, is you had another match the following week, so you had to forget about it. So if you had one or two indifferent decisions that you wish you could have changed, hindsight's a great thing. You had till the Monday to sort your rubbish out, because you then get another appointment which you had to then concentrate on. So you couldn't then take that into the next game. You've got to mentally be tuned for the next one, and you move on again, because football's football. It happens. Games are happening so quick, and from doing only 16 games, I was probably getting more praise because I wasn't seeing a lot more. But when you're refereeing 30 matches every season after that, you expose more. And when you're refereeing the bigger sides, unfortunately, the exposure is even higher, because worldwide, you're going to be criticised. And later, halfway through my Premier League career, then social media developed, and that changed everything for the world, because now everybody can just beat the rubbish out, on social media.
Well, this is what I was going to say in terms of, we all make mistakes in our everyday job. Obviously not me, I'm perfect in every way, but we all make mistakes. And I mean, I'm an Evertonian. I've got to ask you about the derby. The very famous derby, the Dirk Kuyt derby. Could you talk us through that game? Because what you got after that was unjust.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. There was a lot of it unjust, but it was difficult because, I'm not trying to hide the fact that I had a bad game, and this happens. So, there's no point hiding it. These things happen. That's life. I've got to move on. But I had the Manchester derby 2 weeks before it, and I had a really good game. I got so much credit, praise. Man City won 1-0. No controversy. The referee Manchester derby at that time was quite volatile. It was before City became the noisy neighbours, And then I refereed the North London derby, which was always a wonderful game to referee. It was probably the best derby to referee, because for a fast-flowing, not physical game, it was one of the best. So many of the exciting games came from the North London derby. So to referee that was just a breeze. And then I've gone into the Merseyside derby, and I should have realised I didn't use I was probably young, not using me common sense, because if I'm a football fan, Liverpool and Everton's very much a working class city, very much similar to Newcastle, Sunderland, and I knew the rivalry and the history and everything around it. I should have, and I've gone into that game, and I remember first half I was fine. Coming off half time, everything was normal, everything was fine, and there's a couple of decisions in the game which I've took advice from, and I shouldn't have. And there's no hiding place. I'm the boss, and I've took decisions from more experienced colleagues. I don't want to go into them, but there were clear mistakes in the match which all seemed to go against Everton. And one of the major ones, and was the penalty at the end, and I was blocked off, and sometimes you need luck in life, and I didn't get it. And if I'd whistled that penalty, nobody would have talked about the match. People would have questioned the game and said, Mark made a mistake there, or he could have done something different there. But the game finished level, or the chance to finish level. So therefore, the game would have been a bit more balanced. But, in the end, when you look back at the game, there was no balance to Everton. All the decisions went against Everton. So I can understand why people were upset. But I remember people ringing us. They got my phone number, and they were ringing us every Saturday night to me home phone, and ended up just having to put it off the hook on a night. And some of the death threats I got, some of the posts, I had to tell the postman, if my name was just on a packet, don't bring it, because it didn't even have my address on it. Royal Mail thought they were doing us a favour by delivering me post without an address. So I was getting all these death threats in the post, and some of the stuff was really hurtful, and what they were going to do to my family. And I've had a lot since, you know, but that's through social media. Unfortunately, there's, you know, people do write nasty stuff, but there was some nasty stuff said, and, you know, did I contribute to that? Yeah, because my performance wasn't at the level it should have been at. Do I regret it? Of course you do, because, like you say, you want to be a perfectionist and you want to be the best you can be. And when you don't have the best of games, or you don't have the best of days in any walk of life, if you don't have a good day at work, you know, like, you sometimes come in and your family get it. But the problem I've got is, if you don't tell your family, it's all hidden. I remember when I was an estimate manager, I made a mistake on an estimate. I had 24 hours, I could put it right, and nobody knew, not even the boss. But I make a mistake on the football pitch, it's worldwide, and that's the hardest thing to deal with as an individual, and mental strength of it. That you know that whatever you do on the pitch, right or wrong, because it doesn't have to be wrong, you're still going to get abuse, and it's how you deal with it. And if you read it, or you want to read it, that's up to you. I read it more now because I'm coming to my retirement, and I'm still hated, so it does make a difference. But you know, it is difficult. But when it certainly affects your family as well, that's even harder, because you're there to protect, and it's only your job. And I wanted to do it the best I can, and sometimes without technology, you're going to make mistakes.
Talk about this. We spoke to Mark Halsey a few weeks ago, and he was talking about that tackle. I think it was McManaman's tackle.
Yeah, Callum McManaman on it was a Newcastle player. I killed him after that game as well, because I'm a Newcastle fan.
On social media. He was
talking about that, and he was saying how much that ate up at him. And you know, you're talking there about family, but as a professional, you obviously continued for many, many years. That was in Halsey's last season, I believe. But you went on for years and years. How do you bounce back from that, and how do you deal with the mental pressure of that?
You've got to. It's like riding a bike. I've had moments in my life where I wanted to quit, and you can't. Sometimes, because, like you say, you've got this bug. You want to do it again, and with the laws, you're going to get the highs. What you've got to understand as a referee, you're not going to please everybody. But one thing you try and do is you try and give a balanced game. And when you play to great advantage, I was watching me Instagram, and the Premier League was showing a clip, and I think I played an advantage to Man City and had a buyout score against Arsenal. I think, I can't have Man City against Arsenal. And you know, the even commentator mentioned it was a good advantage. Still gives us a little tingle, thinking, God, I made that goal, because without that advantage, they would have had a free kick 35 yards from goal, and other things could have happened, you know. So it does give you a sense of pride. So that's the positives, and that's what I think drives you on, because it's a very lonely profession, refereeing, and you know, you've got players have got their teammates around them. The refereeing is very, very lonely, and but that's, if any young child or any young person wants to get into refereeing, they've got to have big mental strength, because ability, you can work on ability, you can work on fitness, but without that mental strength, you're never gonna make it, because you need to keep focused on what you want to achieve. And if you do that, then and block everything else out, then as long as you're not cocky and arrogant about it, and you know that what you're doing is right, and your focus is right, then you need to keep doing that.
I think it would be fair to say overall you certainly got more right than wrong, and your career was really starting to kick on. So I think 2008 was your first Champions League game, and then you got the League Cup final, Liverpool v Cardiff, which I think went to penalties. Is it ever a bit of a relief that it goes to penalties and it's taken out of your hands?
Of course it is. I think it's always a referee's dream. Nothing happened in the match. I think it was a big surprise, because Cardiff were the underdogs. Everybody expected Liverpool to win the match quite easy. And the only downside of extra time and penalties is you don't get any extra money as a ref. If you got overtime pay, I think more games would go to extra time because you think, well, I'm getting extra pay, but we never did. But there's always a regret with that, because if you make a mistake in extra time, you're going to get criticised. If there was no extra time, penalties, you shouldn't get criticised unless the goalkeeper comes mad completely off his line. So really, technically, refereeing in penalty shootout should be easy. But to get to that's the problem. I remember the game was straightforward, and it was my first experience of Wembley, which was nice, because I had a nice little run in 2012 of the League Cup. Then I went with Howard Webb to the Euros as an additional referee. Anybody that wants to understand what an additional referee was, it was a great job. You just stood there behind the goal and looked pretty. And I came in with 1 or 2 good decisions for Howard, and it got him a chance to referee the final. Unfortunately, the scenario of his teams didn't work out in 2012, and then I got the chance to go back to Wembley in 2012 to referee in the Olympics. And just let people know that the Olympics isn't like as an athlete. The football, or certainly the refereeing side of it's a FIFA tournament, so it's part of your development for future tournaments, World Cups, and other tournaments. And because the year before, in 2011, and these are the sacrifices that you must have as a referee. As my child was 1 week old, and I was sent to Colombia for 4 weeks in the under-20 World Cup, and I refereed the semi-final and stayed right at the end of the tournament. And to be away 4 weeks with a young child with me, with her family, was tough. But that she knew the sacrifices that were made. So in 2012, it was like such a great year to go to the Olympics for FIFA. The football tournament had started somewhere.
Oh. I think we lost you there a bit, Mark.
And the actual games had started, so we
lost you there a bit, Mark.
I did a match. Sorry, then the games.
I think we've lost you.
Tournament. And are you there? Have you got us?
Well, hold on a second.
My internet. Maybe my internet.
That's all right. There we go. Yeah, I think back to normal now. Could we just start with the Olympics again? So
So I was appointed to the Olympics. What people don't understand is the Olympics is a FIFA tournament for referees. So it's not like an athlete. It's more development for future tournaments. And to go to the Olympics in your own city was amazing. And I remember refereeing a game at Manchester, New Zealand, and then I did some matches at Wembley, and then I was appointed to referee the final in Brazil, Mexico, 90,000. And the game was brilliant. I remember Blatter speaking to us afterwards, very, very complimentary of my performance. And Mexico won the game. Neymar played in the match, so there was some big stars. And it was such a nice finish to the 2012, where I refereed the League Cup, worked with Howard in the Euros, and then to do the Olympic Games was an unbelievable achievement in 2012. So I didn't get a gold medal like the athletes did, but I got some medals and participation medals, and I've still got me kit that you had to wear, and it was like an old hat, and it was a jacket. It was like old fashioned, but it was brilliant to wear around London, and plus you got free travel, which was quite nice to see London.
I hope you don't mean participation medals like I used to get in school for turning up.
Still the same ones with the image and a little thing on the front.
The most effort was mine.
I imagine there was a slightly different feel to reffing an Olympic game, such as Egypt v New Zealand, or even the final, compared to your Premier League fixtures on a Saturday. Could you feel the difference?
Massively different. Tournaments really, really interesting because you're more of a team, because you've got other referees from different parts of the world, and everybody wants everybody to do well. Where you go back to the Premier League and you're refereeing the same sides again, so it is a nice challenge when you're refereeing teams like Egypt, Mexico, because South American football is different to Asian football. then when you're doing the African sides, they become different. They're very physical. So it's nice to be able to test your skills against them. But then when you go back into the Premier League, it's what you do week in, week out. And, you know, players know who you are. They're not testing you with dissent. They're not testing, you know, the challenges in the day-to-day Premier League. So it is completely different. But tournament football is very enjoyable because you get the chance to see some amazing cities. I've been to, like, in the early part of my career, I went to Bogota in Colombia, and then I did another tournament in Abu Dhabi for a month. So that was the under 17 World Cup. So I went to an under 20 World Cup, under 17 World Cup, and then the Olympics. So it was quite a nice, from a FIFA point of view, it was getting us ready for the future tournaments.
Yeah, and of course, 2013 was a pretty big Champions League game. Bayern Munich v Juventus, that was a quarter-final. And I can imagine a Champions League fixture is probably quite a hostile environment to be officiating in.
Yeah, it was quite. What used to happen for us is the media wouldn't find out who was refereeing the game till 2 days before, so it wouldn't get released. But we knew about a week before, and we didn't get the appointment. We used to get the flights. So my flight was from Newcastle to Munich, so it didn't take a genius to work out that I was going to referee Bayern Munich, because I can't remember who was in the other semi-final, but it certainly wasn't in Munich. So I knew before the first match that I was going to referee this match. And when you set yourself goals, you set them, and you say to yourself, like, I want to do this match, or can I set me goal? And it's like, you know, I teach everybody in life to set yourself any goals. It doesn't matter what you do in life, and it's no different than being a referee. And before each season, I set myself some goals, and one of my goals was to referee a semi-final of the Champions League. And when I was given this appointment, I was like, whoa, a second leg, Bayern Munich, Barcelona. Because first legs are better, easier, because they've got the second leg to sort themselves out. You know, they're the ones that it's you know, it's bust, isn't it? It's any mistakes or anything happens, they're out. But first leg, they can try, and they've got another 90 minutes to solve it. I remember watching the first game. I think it was about 70 odd minutes. It was 0-0, and I was watching it with a friend in a bar. Just watching the game, and I was just mindfully keeping an eye. I recorded it so I could watch the games back. And then the game ended up finishing 3-0 at Barcelona, 3 late goals. So practically thought it killed the tie. But I went in and I prepared myself for the game. I watched the DVD 6 times. It was my first massive big game. I didn't want to, even though it was 3-0, I didn't want to set me goals. I wanted to make sure, because you know what? I knew, I'd been at Bayern Munich before. I knew how hostile it is. It's very noisy if they score. And I thought if Bayern Munich score early, the game's on. Because they get the crowd on the side and they score early, you know, the next goal is crucial. Because if it goes to 3-2 on aggregate, whoa, the nerves start to dangle. And I've got all my team prepared. I've watched the video. And we arrived at the hotel the night before. We always used to fly the day before in case there was any flight issues. Arrived at the hotel. Kalina's my observer. I'm like, whoa, he's my boss. He's the big boss in UEFA. And I'm like, whoa, Kalina's God, you know. And he said to us, it was the next morning. Next morning, he says, I want to sit down with you at lunchtime. I says, yeah, no problem. So we sat down at lunchtime, and he opened his laptop up, thinking, what's he doing here? And he says, have you watched the game? And I said, yeah, I've watched it 6-7 times. I'm really prepared. I'm mentally prepared. I'm best I've ever been, you know. And why I watch games is I'm looking for different areas that I can try and solve. Maybe 2 players were into each other. Maybe I could try and get into the room, because what you've got to try and do as a referee, you're trying to prevent things happening before it happens, because you'll not see things that have happened. You're just reacting to things. So what I'm doing is probably trying to solve a lot of things so it doesn't happen. So in my mental, everything that I'm looking at, I'm thinking, I've got to try and solve that. Or potentially that might be a problem. And he says, have you watched everything? I said, yeah. He says, have you seen any tactics in the game? I says, no, not really. He said, can I show you something? I said, yeah. He said, watch. So he showed us 6 video clips, all Bayern Munich. And what they were doing was they were putting Thiago, who was the smallest player from Bayern Munich, is a blocker. So he was the blocker. And what that was releasing was the tall players from Bayern Munich. Anybody knows Bayern Munich at that time, and still are, they're a very tall and physical team with Lewandowski, Muller. So what they, in Boateng, and what they were doing was they were using the player to block Piqué, because they knew Barcelona only had one tall player, which was Piqué. Everybody else, Alba, Mascherano, Messi, all the Barcelona players are small. So every time the ball was getting delivered into the penalty area from the corners or attacking free kicks, they knew that Piqué was wanting to meet the ball. So what they were doing was getting blocks in. So they were using Thiago, the blocks, which then created the tall players onto the Mascheranos to potentially get a goal. And that's a foul. So he said to us, can you have a watch of it? I said, yeah, no problem. He said, how are you going to solve it? I said, well, I'll have to solve it. I've got to solve it somehow. So I went into the game, and you wouldn't even know what happened in the game, because it's got no interest here, because you're a football fan, and 30 minutes I give a foul. And I said to Thiago, I'm watching you, because English can be quite difficult abroad, so you use your body language. I'm watching you. And Piqué is looking at us going. And then I've got the coach from Barcelona shouting to the fourth official, because I can hear it down my head, say, this is a tackle, watch, the referee, blah, blah, blah. And the fourth official said, calm down. Calm down. So as the ball gets delivered in, I see Thiago block Piqué, but there's no danger. It was on the edge of the penalty area. There's nobody even discussed it. Even the commentators don't discuss it. I give the foul. Piqué is clapping. I hear the coach going, "Oh my God!" I said, Thiago, I said, keep doing it. I'll keep giving fouls. That changed my refereeing after that, because players then, when you started looking at different things in the game, deeply into the game, they've seen you differently, because they thought, hold on, this referee's knows what we're going to do, and he's going to solve it or punish it before it even actually happened. So, for example, I would then say, there's no point in doing that, Thiago, because I'm just going to whistle a foul, because you're going to block him, aren't you? And he's going, oh my God, how does he know that? So players see me differently, and they thought, oh my God. And that's why Kleiner was the best referee in the world, because he got into the players' heads, and he was solving many things. So the players were like, oh my God, he knows what we're going to do. The coach has told us what to do, but a referee knows what we're going to do. And it solves so much. And that's what changed my refereeing life after that, because players seen it as completely different.
And I was going to ask about that. We joked at the beginning about you being one of the best in Europe, okay? I think it's fair to say Pierluigi Collina is the best in Europe. Is that a fair comment? And is it things like this that make him the best? And you talk about getting in players' heads. Is it the fact he was also 6'6", didn't open his mouth and just gave you the stare? He just had an aura about him.
He had a presence. He had a presence about him, and I think top referees in the world have presence about them. They have. It might be just a stare, it might be a smile, it might be. But you knew when to do it. Like if a player's really angry, you don't laugh at him. You don't want to smile at him, because sometimes that can have a bad effect. But you just knew what to do, and he had this aura about him. He had respect from the players, and I felt after that match I had a different respect. I think that's why 2016 was a good year, or an exceptional year, because I found the game become a little bit more easier for us, because I knew what I was one step ahead. I was trying to be one step ahead from, for example, even just little small things you give us, like the fullback's got the ball, and when you're a Sunday morning ref, you watch the ball and you're like, whoa, and then you miss somebody getting pushed to the ground. But when you listen to these top referees, and the Kleiner was without doubt the best, he would say, well, Mark, why are you watching the ball? You know that a top player is going to play the ball in from the wing. He's a good player. All fullbacks are top players. They're going to put the ball into this. Okay, he might not put it on the penalty spot. He might not put it on the player's leg, but he's going to put it close to somewhere. He says, so why not just move into that position and watch it without watching the ball being delivered? And it solved a lot of things. You actually were watching what was going on instead of watching the ball. And you watch now, even some referees, you'll see them watching the ball instead of watching what's going on. And
where the ball's going around, etc. Did Collina, because obviously he did make mistakes in his career, most notably Everton being knocked out the Champions League. But we won't talk about that now, will we?
No, I better not.
Anyway, if you have got any views on that, the Villarreal disallowed
I
goals.
can't remember. You say I can't. Even though I know you're an Everton man. I've already upset Everton fans once, and I know he upset them as well. And you know that's what I was talking about. European football and stuff in second legs. One decision, it knocks you out, and they're the ones you remember. If that happened in the first leg and you win the second leg and you're through, you seem to forget about it. But it's crucial, you know, every decision, especially in second legs, are so crucial.
Well, even though he was the best in Europe, he was the demise of Everton in Europe at that time. But we'll move on.
That's us both. And so, but I had some. What's amazing, I still get abuse of Everton fans, or I was getting abuse, and it took us a while to go back, quite rightly so, because of the abuse I was getting from. But I remember some amazing games after that. And, you know, I remember refereeing at Everton and at Man United when he won, and Man City won 4-0. We beat Arsenal, but everybody still remembers the Derby game, you know. And I had one bad game, and people always remember that. But it was against the arch enemies, so no, I'll never be forgiven for that.
And just going back to Kalina, did you learn so much more from people like Kalina and Hackett and even Graham Paul and people like this? Do you just learn so much from them?
Not much. Graham and Keith, the Premier League guys that I was around, you know, Graham was the top one, and Graham Barber, Rob Stiles, these type of guys. They were good to have from an experience point of view. But certainly when you went abroad, it was completely different. It was, you know, refereeing different style of football. And at that time, not Howard, but like me and Howard Webb seemed to change European football from an English point of view, because English refereeing was never doing really well abroad. It was two different styles. And that was the hardest thing for people to adapt to, that you had to referee one style in the Premier League, and you had to have a slightly different style when you refereed abroad, because UEFA had clear guidelines of what they want to protect the players, no studs up. So when, for example, teams played in Europe, fans were like, well, why is that a foul? Because it's not a foul in the Premier League, because people accepted that that's how we played the game in England, but it was slightly different abroad. So, you know, to listen to people like Colina, me and Howard Webb, probably spent a lot more time in their company, because we're a lot more tournaments and a lot more courses, and we learned a lot more off them, because they made us understand the game more. And like I said to you before, if you understand the game more, you become more successful, because the top referees are the ones that solve before it actually happens. Because if you solve something after it's happened, guess what? It's going to be a debate. Is it a penalty? Is it not? Is it a foul? Is it not? Where if you actually tell the players before it's going to happen to not do it, they probably won't do it. So therefore, you haven't got a decision to make.
And this all leads to what arguably is, I would presume, is one of the pinnacles of your career, which is 2016, where you did the treble as a referee. I mean, the first game we're going to look at is the Champions League final. You talked about the semi with Barcelona. You did the Champions League final. And I've got to keep going to this. You talk about game plans and things, and there's a few times I've heard that when I've been obviously researching. What was your game plan going into the Champions League final?
It was hard, because I'd just come off the FA Cup final, so I didn't have much time to prepare. I had a week, less than a week, because by the time I'd come back away from London on this Monday and recover from the FA Cup final, and you're then preparing for a Champions League. But it started up before. I was shocked that I was appointed to the final, actually, because my goal again was to referee the semi-final. I'm not saying I wasn't ready for the final, but there's more experienced referees, you know, people like Jonas Eriksson at the time, a very successful Swedish referee, and some good referees. And I remember doing a semi-final. So it was Bayern Munich, Atletico Bayern. And it was interesting, I refereed Atletico Madrid 3 times in 4 match days. They beat PSV on penalties, so I was a hero. They beat, who else did they beat? They beat I can't remember who else they beat. They beat somebody else. And then I've ended up getting them against Bayern Munich semi-final. So the pressures, you know, and you think, hold on, you know, your first leg, that's your goal, because nobody ever referees a semi-final and a final, because the other team's going to complain, say, "Well, you've refereed them in semi-final. You've looked after them, you know." So once you've done a semi-final, that's it. Normally the competition, they already know who they're going to have for the final, so they don't appoint the semi-final. So doing the semi-final, it was very successful. Everybody was happy. Colina was happy. The clubs were happy. Nothing controversial in the match. Finished 1-0 to Atletico. So I thought, I've done my job. First leg, over to the next referee. And something strange happened in the next game, because not that game, but the Turkish referee, Kakia, he refereed one semi-final. Then he did the semi-final of the other game, which was unheard of that season. So normally if you refereed one semi-final, that was it. So all of a sudden, UEFA are changing the goalposts and the way they appoint. So I wasn't expecting the final, and then I got a phone call off Kalina. And when your phone ring, and it's Pierluigi Kalina, you start like bricking it a bit, you know. It's like your boss ringing you from work, and you're, "Whoa, what have I done wrong?" Because they never ring you to tell you you've done all right. It's always
special
like
ringtone.
And he says, "Pleased that you've been appointed to the English FA Cup final." I says, "Thank you." He says, "How would you like to go to Milan?" I said, "Well, I was thinking my wife loves Milan for the shopping and that, so I thought that would be quite nice." And I said, "Well, I would love," thinking I'll be fourth official because I've already done the semi-final. I said, "You know, if being appointed as the fourth official out of this world, you know, brilliant. It's an honour." And he went, "No, I'm not asking you to be fourth official. I'm asking you to referee." I was on a hard shoulder. The motor, I just off the hard shoulder on a slip board going up, and I was shaking to be appointed to a Champions League final. I was going to St George's to meet the other referees, and I wasn't allowed to say anything till 5 o'clock till they officially announced it. So on Sky Sports News, so it was quite a surreal afternoon. I think in training I was like Billy Whiz. I was like running around like a headless chicken because the adrenaline was kicking in, and but the preparation before was, we're talking about game plans, and people probably preempt game plans and think, why has referee got game plans? Like, clubs have tactics, and they organise the way they do things. They'll look at my performances where I stand at corners. Don't underestimate. Clubs are looking for an avenue to win football matches, so they look at how many yellow cards I gave. Am I likely to punish cynical fouls? And they're very clever people. And what we do is we look at, for example, in swinging corners, out swinging corners, because we can tell by the foot. So I'll change my pattern of movement to compensate. Is it an in swinger or an out swinger? Because an out swinger will normally end up on a penalty spot or near post. An in swinger, I'm looking more at the goalkeeper, because that's where they're going to put it. So you're changing your way where you look, because you can't see everything. You're just trying to see as much as you can. And things like, are the blocking, like Kalina taught us in 2015, you're looking at all these tactics. So yeah, so you go into a plan. I knew they played each other 2 years before, and it was like a riot. So I knew it was going to be a tough match. It's a derby. Watching them in the league, there's no love lost. They despise each other. I've learned from the Liverpool-Everton game in 2008 how hostile the teams can be. So I was as prepared as I could be. I knew Pepe, Ramos, the wind-up merchants. I know there's players in Atletico Madrid that can, Gabi, for example, can be in your face trying to try and influence you. So I knew it was going to be really tough. And I thought to myself, we've got 2 ways this can go. And as a referee, you think, when people say you shouldn't go in preempt, it's absolute bull. You've got to prepare yourself. And you're looking at, do I really want to go in strong and kill the game? Is it A, a spectacle, and B, potentially have a chance thinking that I could send somebody off? Or do I take an approach early doors to see how we'll go? If there's something blatant, punish. But if there's something that we can manage and use my personality or use some presence, then I'll see how this develops. So I thought, if that's the plan, I'll see how it breathes. If I can see it going wrong, then I'll have to pull it back and just start making me feelings known by maybe cards. So I've got to manage this. And I had that plan. I let the game flow. And there was 1 or 2 moments early in the game. And I remember saying to the guys, the assistant referees and the guys behind the goal, I said, guys, if this goes wrong, it's going to go pear-shaped. But unlucky enough, the game settled down after about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and we got into a normal game. And yeah, there was some flash points in the game. That's Champions League. There was a goal that was incorrectly given for offside. and that's a matter of fact. You know, you can't lie about offside because it's not opinion. You might say it's a penalty, I might not. But with offside, it's a matter of fact. And it was a minor call, and with video and VAR, that's why VAR's brought in, because VAR would have overruled the decision. It was marginal. Real Madrid got the marginal decision, but I'm sure during the game, like the penalty kick in the second half was another marginal call that Atletico got. So a bit of balance came back to Atletico. Unlucky Griezmann missed it, but that's my fault again. He missed it, you know. The player misses a penalty, and it's my fault. But that's life. But like you say, the game went to extra time, and I was fatigued. The players were fatigued. It was a hot night. And all I can remember saying to myself was, "Hope this game finishes soon because I'm so fatigued." But the players were gone as well, and it went to penalties, and that's a perfect result for me because now I can't influence. I can't make a decision that will influence the game. So therefore, I'm not going to get criticised. And the player who misses the penalty is going to be the one that gets criticised. But I think I still get criticised for that as well. The player that missed it, but that's life. But one of the satisfying things in the Champions League was after the match, the beers, Heineken are the sponsors. So Heineken sponsor, and they have 120 bottles of Heineken in the winner's dressing room. The loser's dressing room gets none, and the referee dressing room gets 120. So it's win-win.
So you don't really remember after the game? It was just...
No, I remember having a sore head the next day. But it's such a... I remember not sleeping all night. It was just... My wife met us. She came to the game, and we met up in a restaurant afterwards, and we stayed in separate hotels, and we met up the next morning, and she came over to the hotel at 7 a.m. I hadn't been to sleep. Couldn't sleep with the adrenaline and, you know, what had gone on. And it was weird because it was such a down moment on the Sunday. I was lucky enough, I had some friends out in Milan, so we went out for some food, and but it was such an anticlimax that you built yourself up all week, and then there was such a horrible feeling coming down that you've now finished it, and you think, oh my God, what's going to happen next? But I had to quickly move on because a week later I'm meeting up for the Euros, so I had to quickly prepare myself and dust myself down for the European Championships.
And it was huge because 2016, as you say, the FA Cup final as well, you alluded to it before. There's no need to go into the game. We all know the result. But I am going to ask you one question about it. Why did you not send Alan Pardew off for that dance?
I didn't see it. He's probably having a go at me because I should have played some advantages in the game. But, you know, it's like cup finals. It's, you know, small margins. And, you know, I remember when they scored, I think Jason Puncheon scored. But he was a sub, wasn't he? Pardew had got criticised for dropping Puncheon. Puncheon scores. But I think Puncheon made a mistake because he didn't track back and allowed the equaliser. Then I sent off Chris Smalling.
Chris Smalling, 2 yellows.
So he got sent off. So it was 1-1. They're down to 10 men. Big chance for Crystal Palace. And Man United won it 2-1. And I got booed getting me medal from Crystal Palace fans, and I got booed to get me medal of Man United fans. I think, friggin' hell, it's a no-win situation. Yeah, I've had a nightmare.
As you say, you know, you've used this before. You just can't win. But I'm just going to pick up on another word, and I'm going to say I haven't been keeping a tally, but I'd say you've probably used it 10 times during this interview, which is this word balance. And I've got to ask you as a referee why that word is so important to you, because obviously for us as a football fan, we like balance, but we also appreciate that, as you said, the rules are there to be followed. Where does this balance element come in?
Fairness. It's about fairness. If you send a player off from one team for one offence, and you've got a similar situation, and you don't send them off, there's no balance. There's no fairness. So you don't even the game up. That's absolute garbage. You know, if you make one bad decision, you want to stick with one bad decision. You don't want to make 2 and 3, 4 bad decisions. You know, there was a trick that you used to use as a referee. If you give an incorrect corner, for example, you could balance it up by giving a free kick to the defence. You know, that was common sense. You know, you didn't want a goal off a dodgy corner, so therefore you would give a free kick from some infringement to balance the bad call off. But what you didn't do, for example, is if you made a decision, you believed that was correct on the pitch. So you didn't then say, well, I'm going to balance it up by making a decision that could be wrong. That's rubbish. What you do is you're trying to find, because what I remember certain situations happening in my refereeing career, and coaches used to talk like this all the time, and they would talk about fairness and balance. And if, for example, I had 4 yellow cards in a game to one team, and I remember coming off. All 4 were clear, absolutely clear. The other team had none. I had a great game, really, really good game. What was the only comment that I got off the coach coming off? I wasn't fair because we had 4 yellow cards and they had none. And that's what people understand in football, that they want this balance and fairness. So if it was 4-2 yellow cards, he would have had nothing to say. But he just felt his team was victimized because he had 4 yellow cards. Because in their heads, they want the balance, the fairness. And that was something as a top referee that you're trying to keep the game like balanced in a way that everybody's comfortable. Like, for example, and, you know, as a fan, you think, well, you've got the rules. Yeah, but policemen have rules, but they're not literally applied. They've got some tolerance around it. So everybody's got to understand, yeah, there's factual decisions that you have to give, but there's also what's a foul? Is that a foul? Is it not? Pushing. So therefore you have to have some sort of tolerance levels. But when you come into the game, and for example, a foul in the first 5 minutes, you think, well, why is that not a yellow card? But then 70 minutes, it is a yellow card, but the game's probably gone up six notches. The crowd level's gone up, and you're thinking, hold on, I need to manage this situation to try and bring the pressure back down before maybe somebody gets sent off. So you're trying to make your way through the game with certain decisions which has some sort of positive impact. And it's a bit like a policeman. He's trying to not arrest people, and he's using his man management. Eventually, he has to apply the law literally. And it's a bit like a referee that sometimes have to apply it literally.
I'm really intrigued, and I'm sorry to labour this point, but you have described it perfectly, and I agree as a fan, that's what we want to see. But do you think that some referees who haven't got the experience are sort of not able to do that? And do you also think then that things like VAR, which are all to the point, because VAR by definition should never get it wrong, but then the people who are watching the VAR despite the rules are still getting it wrong?
Because you've got so much interpretation. So when it comes to offside, it shouldn't be wrong because it's factual. They get the line. Okay, sometimes, unfortunately, the offside law, we're not all going to agree as a football fan because a toenail's offside. Any part of your body that can score a goal. I don't agree with it. As a football fan, I don't agree with it. So, you know, just because I'm a referee, I have to apply the law as it is. It's a toenail, unfortunately. Where it comes to physical contact, is it a penalty or not? We're seeing players sliding in. He's probably maybe exaggerating the fall and all these areas. That becomes the opinion, and that's where VAR is a difficult subject, because other sports, most decisions that are given on the field are factual decisions. Cricket, for example, tennis, football has still got a very evolving situation of opinion decisions. And if the VAR agrees with the referee, the only thing I would like to see, certainly in the Premier League, is to go to the monitor, so the referee makes the final call, because you want to be, as a referee, you want to be the one that makes the final decision. And I just felt that VAR can sometimes dilute the referee's powers on the pitch. You know, he should be the final decision maker. That's what we've been used to. And what we can't have is referees not making decisions because they've got the VAR. And, you know, I think personalities like Mark Halsey was a big personality, and yourself, Howard Webb. I don't think you need them personalities anymore, because referees are becoming robotic with the technology, and I'm not sure it's a good thing.
But question, why don't they put you, Mark Halsey and Webb in a studio for VAR instead of having a 22-year-old who's fresh out of university?
Because if you listen to Man United fans, all their fans around the world, because they all think that we're Man United fans, the Man United would win the league. So we're not having that. So even though I'm a Newcastle fan, it's sad. It's sad in a way that I went to Saudi Arabia. Mark Halsey left the Premier League. He was getting too old anyways. He needed his bus pass. But Howard left, and you know, he's gone to the MLS, and you just think there's so much talent. Graham Paul left, and not one of them's been retained within the Pigeon World structure, which is the group of referees. And it's sad when so much experience is lost to other countries. And you know, the MLS have got Howard Webb's experience, and he's got massive experience. I went to Saudi, I've gone to China, and you know, I'm now back looking at other opportunities in the UK. And you know, to lose that experience and qualities, quite damning on English refereeing, really, because you know what me and Howard Webb have achieved over the last 10 years. We've done absolutely every final, from Super Cup, which you forgot about. I've done the Super Cup. I've done every final in the World Cup, and he's done the World Cup and Champions League. So, you know, what a massive achievement for English refereeing. And both of us are not even involved in the structure of English refereeing, which is quite sad, really, because I think we've both got a lot to offer. Not that I'm trying to promote myself for a job.
So heading towards the end of your time in refereeing, there was an incident or an article which had the Referees Hall of Fame, which had your team in, but not you. Was that something that was a bit of a kick in the teeth, I suppose, is the word I'm after?
Yeah, that was up to them. It means nothing, because if I wasn't involved in it, I was the boss. What does it make, you know? And I'd left to go to Saudi Arabia. I was professional when I left. I give them notice. I even stayed till the end of the season, because what I didn't want to do was, you know, because I left in March, I said to the Premier League, I'll finish my season off because I'm professional. I don't want to let the Premier League down. I don't want to let the PGM World down. I was commuting between Saudi and in Premier League. Saudi were happy as doing that. And I finished at West Brom in late April. And then they had their conference in August. I wasn't invited. I wasn't expecting to. I was on holiday, and typical how petty the organisation can be. They induced all the other guys, but all my team contacted us individually and said how difficult and sad it was, because we're a team, and without them, I couldn't achieve what I did. But without me, they wouldn't certainly have achieved what they got, you know. And they got massive highs in 2015 and 2016, and what they achieved, and like European Championships, and to get the final in the Champions League final. Nobody ever dreamt about it. That was all driven from myself on performances on the pitch, but I couldn't have done without. If they made an offside decision that was wrong, then I possibly would have went home. So I had to thank them as well. So we're a team, and you know, I don't feel hard for them, because they have to accept the award because they're still within the PGM world. But you know, juice won the juice store, but it's nothing. I think it was just a piece of paper on a wall somewhere. I don't know. It's certainly not a medal or a tattoo I'm going to get. I should get a tattoo saying no Hall of Fame or something.
Very, very honest answer, and appreciate it. And I think your team was Simon Beck and Jake Collin, is that correct?
Yeah, I took Jake the following year. I think Jake left PGM World, and he came to work. He was getting old, and he'd lost all his rewards. He pushed himself to reach what he did. And he came to work for me in Saudi Arabia as a bar manager, and because we took bar into Saudi, just to try and get some fairness. And I think he's still there. We don't really speak now because I went out to China for a year and spent 12 months, and then I've come back to see the family. So yeah, I'll try and catch up with them. But no, it was amazing. You know, within the rights of what they've achieved, and they should be proud, because you know, when you look back, there's not many opportunities when you're a child from growing up in a council estate, standing on a pitch getting abused on a Sunday morning or a Sunday afternoon, and you're there. You are France, Portugal, or the Madrid's derby, or I've been in the Premier League on my last match, to stand there, and they should be proud of what they've achieved, because without their hard work, they wouldn't have achieved it. That's what I'll say to anybody in life, that if you want to work hard at something, you can achieve it. And yeah, you need some luck, but you need to work hard. And I worked extremely hard, and I got my rewards. Now I can look back with pride.
I think that kind of is a nice way to kind of finalise the interview. You know, really appreciate your time. What is next then for Mark Clattenburg?
I'm trying to get my golf handicap down, because I'm getting called a bandit. So yes, I'm playing a bit of golf. I've got some business interests. I'm still going to be writing my column for the Daily Mail on a Monday, just to analyse refereeing decisions, try and give them some balance, people understanding. I don't like, sometimes you've got to criticise the decision. I never try and criticise the referee because it's a hard job. It's not an individual thing. But what I'm trying to do is give people an understanding of why that decision was made, right or wrong. And if it's wrong, try and explain why it was wrong, give my interpretation of it. So yeah, I'll carry on doing that. So they've offered another 12 months, which is exciting. And I've got a few interests going, and one day I hope to go and work and develop referees in another country, and fortunately it won't be in England. And hopefully I can work abroad and try and develop some referees abroad, and trying to get their referees to the top, and work out sometimes my style of refereeing I can't put onto them because the game's changing again, and we've got to make sure that we're moving with the times. And VAR is such a huge thing now in football. It's not going away, and it's got to get better, and it's working out how to get it better and make it more streamlined so people can enjoy it. And I think one of the areas that I've always promoted within the VAR technology is transparency, and allowing the fan a chance to be able to hear what's being said, because there's no hiding place. Who can open a mic up? I was lucky enough to work for BT 6 months ago, 8 months ago, before the lockdown, on some Premier League games, and you can hear what's being said in the VAR room. So, and it's very, very professional, and I was shocked how professional it is. And so that could be opened up for the general public to actually hear. You might not agree with it, but at least we can understand it. So there's some things that I'm hoping that what I'm saying can help, but also I'm learning all the time, because I've always been a referee, and I want to get into the management side of it, and try and manage the referees and make referees better around the world. And hopefully my experience and what I've learned from a child all the way up can certainly help these referees.
Well, thank you very, very much for your time, and we hope that you continue to work. And the big thing for me is just get VAR right. That's all we want.
Okay, I'll try my best.
So it's a world exclusive.
All I want is Newcastle to be sold. That's all I care.
But there's another angle we could go down, the Saudi
we'll
Newcastle.
Yeah.
We'll leave it.
Mark,
Thank you very, very much for your time.
No problem. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.